back here with my guest musician, Mr. John Churchville. Are you ready for some more questions, John?
I'm ready.
All right. First question. How old were you when you started learning music, learning and studying music?
Well, I guess my first lessons were with Pierre Oja, and he came to my house. I must have been in fourth grade, maybe 10, 11 years old. My sister had been doing piano lessons, so I'd been messing around on the piano, but I wasn't interested in piano lessons. Um, I was very resistant to that, and I will say, I wish I wasn't so resistant to that now. Um, Now I love to play the piano, but my first lessons were with two drumsticks and a piece of 2x4, and it was rudiments, learning rudiments. For about a year, I had a 2x4 and drumsticks and learned. Pierre would come over, and he was an amazing rudimentary drummer. Like, he was on one of these major, I can't remember what it was, but one of these major drum lines, and he had his rudiment chops down. And so it was a real foundational, fundamental start. It was these private lessons, and I would, doing the paradiddle, the double stroke roll, the single stroke roll, the flamacue, rattle flamacue, and all of the different rudiments and things, getting those. And then it was a snare drum. And then in end of fifth grade, it might have been the Christmas of fifth grade or something, middle of fifth grade, I got my drum set, first drum set. It was all over. That was it. That's what I wanted to do all the time.
Cool. And did you take music classes in like middle school, high school? I know I only did choir. That's what I had. But
Yeah, so in middle school, I entered into middle school just so jazzed to have a drum set finally, and I'd been taking all these lessons and stuff. And in middle school is kind of where you started band and music, and it was rough. I had a teacher in middle school, Mr. Smeeberg, and he was from the military, and he had a very, very hard-nosed kind of way of teaching, and he was very direct and curt with students, and the percussion, there was an old dusty drum set in the corner. The percussion was snare drum and a bell set. And I had just gone from a year of snare drum to a drum set, and I did not want to go back to a snare drum again. And not only that, it was super simple music, super like dut, dut, rest, dut, dut. And so it was just like I was kind of in a quandary where I was like, is this what music is now? Like, I was so excited for music in school. And so, one day he told me I was hitting like a girl, which, I understand now that he meant I was hitting too quiet. But at the time, I was completely embarrassed, and it affected my adolescent brain enough. And he upset. There was enough buzz in the band about Mr. Smeeberg is this or that or whatever, that it was easy to quit music because of Mr. Smeeberg. And I tell people that all the time, that you got to really think about quitting if you're quitting because of the teacher, because you got to push through some bad teachers sometimes. But I didn't. I quit. I dropped out of band in sixth grade, and so by the time seventh grade came, I was not eligible for. I didn't want to be in the beginning band and start over again, and I also couldn't be in the seventh grade band because I wasn't in the sixth grade band. So I ended up not being in band, and I signed up for PE. And that year, my seventh grade year, in the wintertime, I broke my collarbone, and I was not able to do PE, so I became an office aide, and I had to collect attendance from the whole school. I had to walk around the school and collect attendance sheets from all the teachers. When I got to the music class, Mr. Smeeberg wasn't there anymore. It was a brand new teacher, Mrs. Peterson, and she said, when I would go in for attendance, she said, "Hey, I heard that you play music." And then I looked over, she had set up the drum set. And then, so every day that I went in to collect attendance from Miss Peterson, she let me sit on the drum set and play with the band. I played a couple songs with the band. And so I got to play drum set with the band at the concert. having not been enrolled in the band, but having been super interested. And I remember my teacher was there. I've always been curious as to, how much a role my parents had to play in setting all that up, or if that was just a moment of grace. But that was a moment of grace in my life that showed me, oh, I can play music with the band and it can sound good. And all of this work that I have been doing was justified and I was able to do it. And so I was back in. I was like, I'm back in, man. How can I get into music? And everyone's saying, well, you can't do it 8th grade, but in 9th grade you can join the jazz band. Anybody can join the jazz band. And so I went to join the jazz band in 9th grade, and they said, we've cut funding, no more jazz band. And so it was too far gone to be in the orchestra or anything. So I wasn't in music in high school in the school, but I had a 4-track tape recorder. I had a space in a garage where my friends would come over and we would play and play and play and record ourselves and play all the time. So that was my schooling. It was literally a garage band in the 90s.
Well, since I've known you as a music performer, Detroit Music Award winner, right?
Yep.
And also as a music educator, and twice Grammy nominated for music education, I believe.
Yep.
So those are obviously two very big components of your musical life. I was wondering if you could talk about ways your teaching and your performing influence each other, or how you balance doing both things.
So, well, it's really about being a student and about being a teacher. And so I think of myself as a student of music. So I'm a student of this thing called music in whatever forms it takes. I used to kind of separate it a little bit more until I actually was inclined. I was compelled to teach an infant music class, and it was infants up through 3-year-olds. So it was a bunch of different classes that were all these young pre-K children. And I noticed like keeping their attention and everything was the same amount of energy and the same amount of passion I had to put into my playing as when I was at a show. Kind of this same kind of intimate show, something like a Crazy Wisdom Tea Room or something, where you're really interacting with the audience, and that energy really propels the night or brings it down, whatever it might do. I was like, wow, I'm here with a guitar with a bunch of toddlers, and they are losing interest because I am not holding their attention. And what can I do? And it was, what can the music do? Not what can I do? Because I didn't want to get silly or start to dance around or anything. It was about the music. Because I tell you, when I went in with that first chord in the first class, it was mesmerizing to everyone. I was like, yeah, this is music. And that lasted for about, I don't know, a minute and a half. And then they were like, oh, back onto the Play-Doh or whatever I was doing. And so it's like, oh, how can I keep that? And so the next day I come in with a groove, and I kept the groove in the room, and I felt the groove in the room. And I came to the volume of the room. And so those 2 and 3-year-olds taught me how to really focus on every moment of the performance. And then, beyond, that's just one example of the ties that I see between teaching and learning. So I'm always loving to teach the things like, I'm a, what you would call a project-based teacher. So I like to teach music through creation and through original creation. So if you create a piece of music, and then you go back and you study, okay, how did that go? What's the structure? What's the form? What's the key? What's the tempo? What are the instrumentation? What could you do to improve it? What did you do, to make it sound this great? Whatever it might be, you're reverse engineering the music that you create. And so when that's your process for teaching, then suddenly every project becomes a project that could grow into something that becomes worthy of more attention. And so it's really about finding those interactions with people that are worthy of more attention. Because honestly, when you're working in a creative environment, there's no more creative human beings on the planet than the youth. In whatever stage they are in development, the creativity that they have is this kind of beautiful thing to work with. And so when you're working with creating original music with youth and seeing what inspires them, they kind of give me license to be inspired and go for it and try new things and do things all the time. So that intersection is always there. And then that intersection between being a music student of my teacher, Pandit Samar Saha comes every year and I study from him. And then the next year he comes and, he sees my progression and then gives me other tips and advice and, lessons. So I'm a student of music all the time. And then of course, all the listening and all the influence that you get from everyone, it's a beautiful thing. And to me, it all melds together. When you're talking about creating music, creating something original, then anything and everyone and all states of mind apply. And it all just kind of mixes into this big, beautiful kind of project.
All right. Well, on that note, I think we're both getting called by our families for dinner.
Time to eat.
And we're going to go do that. But I'm going to send everybody off. We're going to end this segment now so we can go enjoy family dinner with our family. I'm going to send this segment off with one more awesome performance by Mr. John Churchville. Enjoy this one. We'll see you next time.